Hello, it is my pleasure to warmly welcome you to this second day of the Congress where we will address aspects of how to empower education with artificial intelligence, language teaching, and the way new researchers approach educational innovation. We will have a global but also particular focus on secondary education and university, ending with a session on the challenges and opportunities of educational innovation with artificial intelligence. With Dr. Oscar, we agreed to do this keynote lecture on the first part of today's day from my international experience working with education and youth in different countries, in different continents. So I am going to try to make an introduction to our experts from the panel of empowering education with AI integration. Okay, so that I will start this presentation just to give my special thanks to Dr. Oscar for letting me to be here at this Congress. Well, we are going to have some very good presentations here, and they are the experts. So I just want to give some good introduction about the way we are going to work on this new panel and also and what is going to happen during this day. Okay, so let me say that my presentation is going to be divided into maybe five different parts of the history of the recent part about what is happening with internationalization of education and how we achieve now the use of new technologies in learning. Please let me start with some little introduction. Then we're going to speak a little about Bologna. Then the conceptualization that changed in 2015. Then also what happened in the pandemic 2020, and now what is happening today in this year 2023 with the acceleration that we are living today. First, to say that we are working very hard all the countries about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think the most important part to start. Why? Because we are now working on this new part of the history with the commitment that we have, especially with these three. Let me explain about three of the SDGs that I think is very important for us. Number four, quality education. Number eight, decent work and economic growth. And number 17, partnership for the cause. I think these three are very important for us as educators, and also is very important for the new challenges that we have today. And I think maybe that's also one special reason we are sitting today trying to work in this Congress. There are some ways to look the SDGs, but in order to have this goal very well done, I think that it's important to work with people, and that's the importance of this Congress also, trying to think about the prosperity of our world. And something that is very important for us is peace in the world. And also to get that, we need partnership. We need to go to work together to do that. And we have to think about the planet, what is happening today, and how to take care of the planet. People, we that we are gathered today, we are very important for that. And also to continue this job working with others. So people, prosperity, peace, partnership, and planet are our commitment for these new ways. When we usually speak about internationalization, we usually think about traveling and going to very good, beautiful places, etc. But internationalization is more than that. Internationalization represents a new concept that maybe the pandemic helped us to have a different view, a new view, the new way to work today in our planet. So this is what I am going to speak a little about the stage of internationalization now and how we work with new technologies and the new ways to work now as educators and how to change, to exchange students and how to view this in a different way. Well, let me first explain a little about what is happening in the global tertiary education. As you can see here at this figure, there is a lot of movement about this. 2,336 million students are now in higher education globally, all over our planet. But we have doubled this in 2 decades. And now 6.4 million students are studying abroad. And this is very important to understand what is happening really now and the new ways that we are facing this international student mobility. In the figure in the left, you can see that this is the percentage of international students by the region of origin, where they are now, or they want to go to other places. As you see, East Asia and the Pacific are the highest part of the global that want to go to other places. But in the figure of the right, you can see the percentage of international students by host region. That means people that receive the places where they go. And also East Asia and the Pacific are the most place, including also one of the most important views of international students about North America and Western Europe. As you see from the left, there are people from all over the world that want to go best to North America and Western Europe, and then to East Asia and the Pacific. That may be good to help us to understand how mobility, and this is in person, traveling abroad, and the way they are thinking today. This is the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, and last month they published that. So it's nice to understand how we are moving all over the world. Something very important, at least for me, is what we can read in different documents, like this one of Valerie Clifford and Catherine Montgomery about the 5 quality of global citizenship. And it's important to understand the first one, critical thinking and problem solving. The second is community and collaboration. Third, technology skills. Four, adaptability. And five, cross group cultural awareness. What does it mean? That people that moves and that people that has this international view is people with a global citizenship that can understand the way that the global movements is now and is a way to adapt as the fourth of this, the adaptability, to travel to different parts of the global, but also to understand the global in the local way they live or the local way they work. So this is the importance of have a good point of internationalization and to understand that we live really in a world. We don't live only in a country. We don't live only in a city. We really live in a world. And in this cross-cultural way that we live today, we have to be also careful with our ethnicity, with our own perspective of the world, but also to be involved in all the world and all the culture that we have uh, more maybe in other countries, in other coasts, in other continents, in other trying to think that other people are part of me, that we can work together, and that we can receive, and that we can also give this intercultural way to think now as society through the education. The concept of internationalization has changed a lot. I remember the first one that I knew was this one of the night, the process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, and delivery of post-secondary education. Well, that was the first, but this is influenced by international or supranational organization on the agenda that they design on the educational policies in the world. In Latin America, for example, which I understand is the majority of the number of the participants of this country, the guidelines are derived from UNESCO and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Well, we have to be also aware that we have gone through a great storm that forces us to live prepared. That storm was really very complicated for all of us. You know what happened in 2020? And this also helped us to understand a new models also that usually develop in the darkest state of the crisis. And with this crisis, we can think in a different way. We must believe in the transformative power of internationalization and take bold action. It is necessary really to reinvent this internationalization. How? With connections and collaborations. And this is really a great and unprecedented opportunity to examine what we do today all over the world. And this is also a new reality in our institutions. And that's the way we are working very hard. With these different stages of the history that I started to tell you, I'm going to explain a little about Bologna and how Bologna impacted a lot the new way of this concept all over the world. The first principle was the free circulation of knowledge. That happened in Europe, and this was because we had the Bologna Declaration, a document signed in Italian, in Bologna, in 1999. That happened because of the meeting of the ministers of education of the different countries in Europe trying to have this free circulation of knowledge. So that 29 European countries signed what we call the Bologna process. With that, there was a great commitment from universities. And this is very important because education helped us a lot, not only in Europe, but also all over the world. And it happened in since 2000, a new way of thinking in universities. In Europe, that was titled Refined Educational Structures in Europe. A different way to understand that we were just one continent in Europe. And in Europe, it started a methodology to design and evaluate programs. Well, we know perfectly that we have different methodologies in Europe according to each of the countries, but we needed to understand the boundaries, the limits, but also the best model to work together. Well, with that started the tuning project. The tuning project had some conclusions. Some of them were to work with credits as the model of homologation, and also to design the learning outcomes. For that, we needed competencies and also to work in specific and generic competencies. And this was also the first point to change not only Europe but also some other countries, because this was a single and this was really a most influential movement not only in Europe but in all the countries. For example, in Latin America, many countries adapted what happened in Europe to get a new structure of higher education, taking into account the ideal principles of the European higher education systems. That's what really meant like a philosophy for the effective commitment to mechanisms of implementation. Yes, we could have maybe this international model, but working in the own country, it was necessary to adapt uh, this international movement to their own country. And this was very nice because there were some structural tools, thinking on academic freedom, democracy, citizenship, stakeholder participation, international collaboration, social cohesion, and mobility, what you see in this figure, in this slide. And Erasmus Plus was a program that had a better challenge, a better way to think now with this kind of unification of structures in educational way in Europe. That's the reason in Latin America also we started to speak about the basic, generic, and specific uh, competencies that was part of the adjustment from the tuning project in Europe. So now it is very common to have the basic, generic, and specific competencies and a new way to work at this part of the continent. So the most important reason here was to have the specific needs in skills today. Maybe the question was why we have students at university, why we have students at the high schools, why we have students at the elementary school. Well, to be better for the future, to have skills today for the near future. And that's interesting to think because now in this year 2015, new concepts of the international mobility started at that point. Let me read a little about the Wheat Hunter and others to redefine this way as the intentional process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, and delivery of post-secondary education. And this is important in order to improve the quality of education. And maybe I think this is the most important point: quality of education and research for all students and all staff, and to make a significant contribution to the society. So it's not only the mobility, is the new concept of internationalization with this international, intercultural, and global dimension, and the content of the curriculum, and learning outcomes, and teaching methods. And I want to point out these as very important points. The content of the curriculum, learning outcomes, and teaching methods. And it was very important to understand that we also make internationalization in our own countries. How? With the curriculum. And we started to speak about internationalization at home and internationalization of the curriculum. Well, with some differences, but it's the way we work also with the universe, what happening in other countries, in other curriculums, and how to work in our own curriculum here in the country that we are representing. Well, that means also the connection between local and global contexts and how we connect each other. Something like a new word called glocalization. To think global, but also to think local and to connect them. That's what it means glocalization. Okay, and also another is to understand that we live in a global environment. That's the reason I started with the SDGs as a global commitment. we have now to think about global environment and to understand that if something happens in one country, it also is going to impact another countries, another society, because we live and work in a global society. So that if we think about a university or a high school, uh, the study plan now have to be in order to prepare students to have social, cultural, political, and economic responsibilities also with an intercultural knowledge. Okay, with this preamble, what happened in the pandemic? Well, we started and reinforced the work competence because now we change the values, the attitudes, the skills, and the knowledge and critical understanding of what's happening in all over the world. I like this award that got Elsep Joens as the North Star Medal of Lifetime Achievement in the Noam Chomsky Global Connections Award 2020 because of her thinking about competencies. And I think it's important to understand that this is the most important now to think in all the places that we work. But it's not only to read, not only to write, it's to act with action. And with action, there are three really steps that are very good for internationalization of the curriculum, which is very interesting to adapt in each country. The first one is to define and describe the international and intercultural competencies. And the second, to create opportunities for international and intercultural learning experiences. And the third is to measure the achievement of the planned international intercultural competency. So these three steps are very important to work at our universities. What is that? It's a process. It's just a process with three important questions. What do we need to achieve at the end of the curriculum? The second is how can we achieve this through teaching and learning? And the third one is what assessments will demonstrate that students are actually achieving. That means a connection, an interrelation of required competencies, teaching and learning, and the learning outcomes, which are the new way to think because in this relation between teaching and learning activities for internationalization, well, I'm going to speak about my own experience with almost 30 years working as a professor. We change a lot because first we were thinking about teaching and now we are thinking about learning, how people understand, how people learn, what are the new ways to have these students with more attention to the competencies and these outcomes. Well, there are many ways to do that. We have international classroom, virtual systems, local environments, etc. Internationalization classroom. We also have virtual learning, which is almost new with some years, but is new in the new conception of that. And the interaction with the local community, also with extracurricular activities and also the mobility, which is something that we have been doing all the time. Well, we can do it by international literature with intercultural context, countries from other to have students from in the same classroom from other countries. Yes, and the presence of international students and also international. The quality is the process that ties of cooperation, and that's the reason I was speaking about the SDG 17 is the how to work with others. And this is the best way to have an international visibility and increase this globalized world. Well, in that point, we have to work a lot with internationalization management, mobility, networks, curriculum, and also research. In that way, we have to we need to have in our country, in our own universities, curricula in foreign languages. As you see, this is a good conception of the whole world, but working in my own country. And the use of academic credits, which is almost the money to understand what is happening in other and to link with other countries and with other universities also. So some particular reflections about this point is the process. We have to understand the process that we are doing in our universities, and also the degree of internal institutionalization that we have in our curricula and in our universities, our colleges, and how we establish, how we have these national policies or the internal policies of the institutional universities or schools that make it happen. Well, and finally, what is happening now, what I call the acceleration, because we have a new vision of internationalization with new elements. That will be happening now in 2023 with immersive reality. We are working a lot on that. We have now augmented reality. We have generated a lot of virtual experiences like the metaverse. And also, we have experiences real with the impact of all industry. So it's a challenge for education, and it's also a challenge for the companies, the industries that we are working together between education and the companies. And there is something that is happening today. Some people compare it to the Industrial Revolution, something that happened nearly 30 years ago, but it's a new way to understand this change a lot that we are doing. I'm going to understand, to try to explain it as I understand from some of my colleges, my colleagues from Mexico, some meetings that I have had recently, and is the futurist way to think about the post-pandemic digital society and the quantum society that we are facing now. But now we have to learn to unlearn to relearn, and this is something very important because we have now different concepts of IA, AI, generative digital twins, Internet of Things, Internet of Sense, replicating artifacts, increasing complexity, etc. We are now working on avatars and metaverse and many things that we have now in the education 4.0. Okay, with that, I just want to say that we live now in a VUCA, volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous world. First, we were speaking about the Bloom's taxonomy, for example. Then, now we are working on the SAMP model using technology in enhancement and transformation ways, substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition of this taxonomy and using these new technologies that are here now. Also, we have the pedagogy will with the version 4.0. So we have different software, we have different ways in technology tools to work with the students. And in that, there are many conclusions now. What is happening in 2023 with the technology and the way we are learning. So we have to be careful of this as professors, as educators, as universities to have this new feeling of the way we work. UNESCO have some competency framework for teachers. We have to be, we are guided for this, and we have to be careful of what is what we are doing in classes also with the periodic table for iPads, iPads. Well, it started with iPad, but really it works with everything that we are doing now with education. With many software, I try to understand in and made my own sim value, for example, to understand because we have many information, we have many software to work with the students. So the best way is to start with the simple ways, the simple tools, and then to start with better and more sophisticated, but we have to start. This is the use of intelligence now. Artificial intelligence now is some complex, but we have to start with the first part. For example, in my classes, I use these figures with the teacher Charlie. Teacher Charlie is my avatar, and it helps me a lot. This is my best assistant in classes. And I think if we start also with some very simple tools like Canva for teachers, Canva for education, or evaluating with Kahoot, but in a new way, students make the experience of working better, or to have this virtual reality that I work with them in classes like, for example, Art Steps, or there are many other interesting tools to work. We have students that work better, more passionate, happy, that they love to study and they love to do the thing in a different way. So with these tools, my suggestion is to help them to be better. Traditional education is in decline. We all know about that, and university education is losing strength. So we have to incorporate new ways to work, new ways to study, connected with the know-how and the emergency skills. So now we are in an innovative and disruptive educational methodology, as my friends in Mexico said, with emerging skills necessary for the profession of the future. Well, with this concept, now the experts are now here. So I will give the floor to my colleagues, Tatiana, Gianluigi, Pratama, Geneva, and Murtala, which I can be very proud to say that they are going to explain more detail what is happening now with this AI integration, empowering education, and also in the new way that we are working today in the world. So thank you very much, dear Dr. Oscar, and I hope to give a good introduction to what is going to happen today in this second day. Thank you very much for all of you. Have a nice Congress, and to continue with this way transforming the lives of many of our students in all over the world. Thank you very much.